Oh my God, what direction is my blood sugar going? Up or down? Hello, Nation. Today I'm going to talk about the difference between blinded and unblinded CGM, or continuous glucose monitoring. Now, blinded CGM is when a doctor says, hey, I want to follow your blood sugars for the next 3 days. You won't see the numbers. You'll be blinded. You'll come back, we'll download the information, and we'll try to make some heads or tails of it. A unblinded real-time CGM is something that I have made by Dexcom. Gives me my blood sugars every 5 minutes, and it has trend arrows, and I can see what's going on with my life, my food, my exercise. And so I'm a big believer in unblinded CGM. I think the only role to blind someone is if you're in a formal clinical trial. Now, there's a very famous quote that continuous glucose monitoring is the single greatest advance for type 1 diabetes since the discovery of insulin. And I believe that. In fact, it's my quote. Now, there's a lot of variables that affect your diabetes, whether you have type 1 or type 2. Everything from the types of food, the intensity of exercise, the duration of exercise. But look at all the other things on there. Oh my God. Gastroparesis, other medications, illness, sex, menstruation, seasonal changes, caffeine, smoking. This is why it's tough to control the blood sugars, especially if you're on insulin. Now, here's a doctor phrase for you. Insulin has a very therapeutic window, at least the way we take it ourselves, injecting into the subcutaneous tissue. What does that mean? You give too little, you get high. You give too much, you get low. And there's not much room in between. It's very tough to get your dose of insulin just right. Now, this is a picture of a bunch of type 1s with damn good glucose control. A1C 6.7, I'd kill for that. But look at their blood sugars. They bounce around between below 40 and above 400. They're blinded. They're on a blinded CGM. Do you see any trends there that you can make permanent changes? No, there are no permanent changes that you can make. I always tell people the best way to control my diabetes is to sit perfectly still, don't eat, and don't exercise. And that's the only way, but that's not practical. My point is this. Every day is different for a person with type 1 diabetes. Now, some of you folks with type 2, you may be a little more stable than us. Okay, that may be helpful for you to go on a blinded CGM for a short period of time, but not for type 1s. No way, no how. Here's a great example. It's a glucose meter with one blood sugar at one point in time, 220. On the upper part, you can see 2 arrows dropping. Are you going to give yourself a correction dose for that 220? Are you really? When you're dropping more than 3 milligrams per deciliter per minute, which is what those 2 arrows define? Now, what if your 2 arrows going up? Are you going to give your usual dose of like 3 units to correct for 220? Heck no, you're going to give yourself more because you're rising quickly. And when you use these calculations on insulin pumps and newer meters, these calculations don't take into account what direction your blood sugar is going. Do you think Charlie Kimball drives around in the Indy 500 on a blinded CGM? What about Chris Freeman, Olympic cross-country skier? You think he wears a blinded CGM? How about Brandon Morrow, pitcher for the San Diego Padres? You think he wears a blinded CGM? What about Team Novo Nordisk? All those guys have type 1. They're riding their bike 6 to 8 hours a day. You think they're going to be on a blinded CGM? Heck no. So us folks with diabetes, what are we told on a day-to-day basis from everybody around us, our caregivers? Don't let your blood sugars go high because you're going to end up blind, lose a leg, be on dialysis. But on the other hand, we have hypoglycemia. And continuous glucose monitoring is the single most protective device we have. And it's a sad statistic that 6% of people under the age of 40 with type 1 pass away from low blood sugar. Cindy Fina, one of my favorite patients, passed away from hypo. Here's a Seattle anchorman, passed away in 2012. We had CGM then. At least Cindy passed away before we had access to these tools. What was going on with that? And here's a publication before the day of unblinded CGM. They took a young man with hypo unawareness. They said, we're going to measure your blood sugar. You won't be able to see the monitor. You won't get alerts when you get low, but we're just going to see what's happening over the next 3 days. He passed away wearing the device. And that's a shame. I think it's malpractice for any caregiver to give a type 1 a blinded CGM over an unblinded device. That's a strong statement, but that's my opinion. What about car accidents? Oh my God. I can't tell you how many car accidents per year, people getting low while driving. They don't have a CGM. And this prototype that you see will have the blood sugars right on the GPS screen. And people are killed driving their car when they pass out. And guess what? They hardly ever kill themselves. They mostly kill innocent bystanders. So this is important. Every patient with type 1 diabetes, and some of those of you with type 2 on insulin, need to be part of the decision to get a CGM or not. So I want to finish with a quote from Yogi Berra. Now, as you know, I hardly ever quote other people other than myself, but this is a great quote. It says, "You've got to be very careful if you don't know where you're going, because you may never get there." So, folks, is there a role for blinded CGM in 2015 and beyond? The answer is no. So long, nation.